I play a few tunes with her, like Victory Stride that we played yesterday, a couple of others in four hands on her CD, and she plays, she has a very good rhythm, so I used her with percussions on a few Errol Garner tunes, and this is a new adventure for us to also try to go back to our individual things and still work together. And
that's very cool. Now, I've noticed you sometimes, well, I've seen you play two pianos. Not everything on one piano, sometimes there's two pianos. My question is, when you're presented with a situation where you're able to play two pianos, do you play different arrangements? Do you play the same kind of arrangements? Can you play something you may have worked out on two pianos on one piano? I mean, it's a whole different world when you're by yourself on a piano, maybe playing an arrangement that is worked out, where maybe Paolo's reaching over you and doing things, but now he's not. Can those arrangements still be played on?
Through? No.
Are they interchangeable between two pianos and one piano?
It depends on the arrangement. So some arrangements can go from, all of them can go from one piano to two pretty easily, although are you using the two pianos in the best way? Maybe not necessarily. So that requires some work to not just be, using half a piano on each piano. So we work on that if we really want to play something that we played on four hands, in four hands on two pianos. It's a little trickier to go from two pianos to one, because then you have to decide, what do you cut out? If he's doing, an arpeggio from the middle register to the top register, and I'm playing something here, how can we do that? And he needs to play the same notes that I'm playing the melody on. So we'll mess around with the pedal. Maybe I'll be playing at the very deep part of the key bed, and he'll be something really.
Well, I would like to add one thing. We have more experience on one piano, four hands, because we have been doing that much more.
I was wondering.
And the two pianos works more like a dialogue. The one piano, four hands works more like an organic, like one musician with four hands. That doesn't look very good, but anyway, that's what it is. And you can have dialogue on one keyboard, and but it's different in terms, for example, of the resonances that comes from the same harmonic soundboard, the same soundboard. So it's important to find that chemistry playing on one keyboard so that you make a good use of the instrument. The two pianos is completely different, and in fact, playing certain arrangements on one piano and trying to put them on two pianos, they don't sound right, because it's you don't get the harmonics, the sounds, the vibrations of the two soundboard together. So we have worked a lot in the last 2 years on two pianos to try to learn how to make a good use of them, and we are still in the process. And in fact, we only have recorded once on two pianos, and all the rest that we have recorded is on one piano. And two pianos is really exciting, of course, but I can think of many duos here. I mean, Jeff and Brian, Frederick and Richard. These duos are outstanding, so we know that, and we want to take inspiration from Dick Hyman, Ralph Sutton, for example, another outstanding duo, and we can mention many other duos. Yes, so I'm talking too much.
No.
I just had. Oh, I'm sorry, right behind. Go, sorry.
If you need to go first.
No.
Don't fight over the microphone, boys. Come on.
Now, I know that I'm only allowed to ask one question, but I'd like to ask this question on behalf of Danny, because as you know, he's painfully shy and won't raise his voice in public. But Stephanie, obviously as a a well-bred St. Louis girl. You're well-traveled, well-educated, well-read, all of the above. But you're now living, not just visiting Italy, you're living there. What are your impressions of Italy? What is it like for you to...
That was my question.
I know, Danny. What's it like to live as a resident in a wonderful foreign country?
I love it. I mean, it's there's a mix of different experiences. I am fascinated by languages, so when Paolo and I started dating, I wanted to learn Italian as quickly as possible, also because his mother speaks no English. So I wanted to learn Italian, and so living there, speaking the language, you really, when you speak another language, you think in a different way. You like find out more about different parts of yourself that you wouldn't have known existed because you have this like other way of thinking. And I would say at this point, I don't think in English and translate to Italian. I'm thinking in Italian, and there are certain things that come to me. I'm like, wow, that's an Italian way of thinking. So I would say Italy is fantastic for vacations, for eating, for the weather, for the architecture, the art. It is not a great place to work. It's kind of disorganized. I'm going through the process of renewing my visitor visa, which will allow me to stay there for more than 3 months at a time. And it's a nightmare. I mean, it's certain things in Italy are just funny. Like you go to the offices where they tell you to go to, the guard standing outside will just answer your question however he's feeling like answering it, even if it's completely wrong. So he sends me to the post office, I go to the post office gives me a form that I have to fill out, which is not the form I have to fill out, and then I run to the other office to ask about that, and it's just like, I felt like I was just like running around Milan, and yes, stopping to see the botanical gardens because it's pretty, but still like running around without really knowing what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is
Well, and all the
Italian.
while taking your life in your hands by running because of the drivers there. That are
Yes. You have to be careful about that. I learned the first summer going to Italy, we went to sort of a beach town in Liguria, and I could not cross the street by myself. And I was like at the point, I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to let Paolo take me across the street because I can't handle this. And he's like, just come with me. You can feel it that they're going to let you cross or not. I was like, well, what if you felt wrong? And there's a motorcycle that didn't want to let you cross. It's like, it won't happen. Don't worry.
It's a much more abrupt thing when you find out they don't want you to cross.
So I love living in Italy, and I think it's a privilege to get to kind of go back and forth because I also see some things about living in St. Louis that I love, and some things that there's some things missing. So it's really interesting culturally to compare the two places, and I think Paolo has had a similar experience, in the other way coming to the U.S.
Absolutely.
Danny?
Danny?
Did you want-
Yes. This is a little something Frederick was wondering. Now, jazz musicians are notorious for making up slang, making up their own language for different things. And I was wondering if in your piano forehands you've created your own terms or slang for when he reaches through, somebody reaches around. Do you have anything set like that you can say that we're doing the Swahili on this one, or whatever you want to call it?
There are. It's so nerdy.
I know, well, that's what I was afraid to do.
I'm almost embarrassed to say like some of the quick slang that we use to indicate maybe like a certain texture. Yeah. So like, can I say? So
Well,
depends what it is. So there's like one texture where Paolo's playing the bass notes and he's soloing, and I'm playing sort of a Brazilian rhythm comping in the middle, and so he'll just be like Brazilian or something
This
like
is
that.
not awkward.
That's not awkward. I'm warming up. What else? Yeah.
Or for example, we have like a way that we say like, let's do like Dave McKenna, and Dave McKenna seemed to have 3 hands when he played, and there's no one that can play that in 2 hands as he did. So, but with more hands, you can sort of have this bass and the
Bass line,
chords,
yeah.
bass line and the chords and the other lines on the right hand. So that's something that works pretty well for the improvised sections. Yeah, so we refer to some arrangements that we have previously done and say like that style that we used for that particular arrangement would be nice used in this section of the arrangement. And
Well, and also I think you're talking about, you know, the slang, and that comes in handy when you're playing, when you're on the bandstand, and you know, you're playing. Maybe we're playing a standard, and there is no arrangement, and so we're just kind of coming up with an arrangement as we go, and you know, coming up with new textures to make it something more interesting. And so we kind of refer to this repertoire that we have jointly.
One thing that maybe it's similar to that is by having played so much next to each other, so you have a limited number of positions that you can reach with the four hands. So in the moment when I'm sitting here and Stephanie's there, if I just do like this, she immediately understands that I'm going to do the bass, and so she will.
It doesn't have to be verbal.
Yeah. I think it's more visual on the four hands. That if I move both hands now, she will probably
I know what you
immediately adjust to the. And the thing is, certain positions offer great textures because you hear maybe a parallel melody on the low and the high register that alone you can't do. You can do just that, unless you are Frederick Hodges, of course. But you have this other thing in the middle. Okay, so just playing in this position, it's not the normal way to play the piano. So you have to get used to feel comfortable and breathe properly, and so that the music comes out like good, and not like something that you want to show the people something impossible, but then it sounds rushed or all disequal in the rhythm. So each tool has to be practiced. It's not only to indicate, okay, let's do that. Yeah, but we need 100 hours to practice for that thing before it comes out natural, I think.
Well, and I think that's probably, for me at least, what sets you guys apart from every other duo I've ever seen, is the fact that you do these things that look impossible, and you're doing things that are in impossible situations, but you're then playing them completely articulately and accurately and perfectly. And you know, to be able to combine that, no, it's
Thank
true.
you, Brian.
But to be able to combine all of the pyrotechnics with the athleticism and everything else that goes along with it, I mean, it's a. I mean, that's why you
And
guys
also
are
make it look effortless because of
Right.
those hours.
exactly.
You know, nobody's ever worried about you. We all know it's not great.
That's true. That's very true. I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, there are certain musicians that you sit there and you go, boy, I hope they make it through that. And it's never. I mean, we sit and listen to you, and it's completely effortless. And well, it seems that we know it's not, but it seems completely effortless, and it's always right. It's always there.
But what are the nerdy parts? You're talking about nerdy.
Yeah, I want to hear about some of the other. We didn't. You were.
We'll talk later.
Come on, Brazilian.
Next question.
Hey, Meg.
Hi there. So I'm wonding, you intrigued me by saying that there's different ways of thinking depending on which language you're thinking. If either of you, both or maybe both of you, could give me an example or two, that would be lovely.
So in Italian, so this is just like a linguistic thing, so sorry it's not music. But in Italian, there are all of these great ways to refer to, like you can add these diminutives and sort of, so you can say that's a young man, or you can indicate that it's a young man but a little evil, or that's a young man, he's little but he's also really nice and cute. And so like there are all these ways to like use one word and right? I mean you can, or a woman, that's even more charged, but the evil woman. And it's just, I mean, that's just one example to show how colorful Italian is. And I can express things more precisely with Italian in certain ways, and English is sort of like clumsy in that way. Like you have to use too many
You have
words.
to use 5 or 6 different adjectives to get to the same point.
That, yeah. And it's,
Now,
Could that be why it's called a romance language?
maybe. Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
But the do you say downside?
Yeah.
The downside of this is that Italian people are very contorted. So when someone talks to you, you immediately think that what he's saying is right, and also it's true and it's false at the same time. That is a lot of effort. And for me to be in the US, it's really nice because I feel I'm relaxing here.
It is straightforward. It's much. People are more direct.
Yes, of course, there are the same logical processes in speech in America and in Italy. But Italian people, since it's a small country and everyone tends to know other people, everyone is a little suspicious of everything, that it's a terrible loss of energy. And
no one says anything at face value, and you don't take anything at face value in Italy.
But that's also not true because, for example, when I see my friends and they look at me and they say, "Hey, you put on some weight," and this would, and I said, Yes, that's right, and you too. That's right. And so with friends, you go much further with your friends. There's no diplomacy at all. It's part of loving the other person. You can go really far.
But that's in the context of friendship.
Yes.
Diplomacy, I mean, in other areas, you can't even talk about certain things.
But there are some really deep differences that makes this double life that we have here and in Italy very interesting. And we spend some time talking about certain things that happened that now. Can I say I love gestures in Italian? Okay.
Can you say I love gestures in Italian?
Yeah, I love it. Is there time? I want to tell a story. Okay, so in Italian, they use gestures, and they don't. It's not like you're talking like this.
Now they're speaking in English.
No, this is not. This is not like how Italians use gestures. They have gestures that mean very, very specific things. So the finest example of this was when we were driving and we got to a toll station on the highway, and Paolo was maybe the second car in line. He saw that the car before needed to back up because the machine was broken.
That's part of Italy also.
Everything is always broken. And there was a line of like 5 cars behind Paolo. So I was expecting him to get out of his car, maybe talk to the next driver behind. No, he rolls down his window. He sticks his hand out of the window and he goes like this, which means it doesn't work. And the people, they started backing up like they just knew what that meant. The machine is broken. This doesn't, it was amazing.
Well, the other cars behind probably were Italian too, because otherwise they would have not moved. But that's true. We do speak with hands. We talk with hands. Yes. Why not?
No, I think we should. Unfortunately, I have to speak with my hands right now, saying we have to cut this off. I mean,
all right.
Another hour. We could.
You can do this.
Yes,
you can do that.
Yeah. We could do this forever. I would love to talk. Ladies and gentlemen, Paolo Aldrighi, Stephanie Trick. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
And of course, Paolo and Stephanie will be playing tonight during our second sampler evening. Actually, going to be joined by Steve Bacall and Danny Coots tonight for their double trio. So yeah. Don't forget, we have a cocktail party up in the Sky Observation Lounge at 3 o'clock today. So please be there.